Rossi from Team Sanctum, taking over for Jay to get Michael's Igknight Synchro deck profile live and in the flesh. Do you have anything you want to say before we begin?
Yes, so the numbers are 28 monsters, 12 spells, and no traps for this deck.
All in.
And I'm running, so let's get started with the monsters. I'm running 3 of each of the pendulums, so 3 Veteran, 3 Gallant, 3 Margrave, 3 Cavalier, 3 copies of Templar, 3 copies of Paladin, 3 copies of Squire, and 3 copies of Crusader.
So does this ever clog, or is this like something you have to run if you're trying to do this deck?
It's not exactly essential, but you want to open as many pendulums as possible because it helps you get into the ones you really need for some of the more important combos. Like you really need these 3s for the big combo, which I'll show later.
Okay.
But just opening more scales is typically better. And then for tuners in this deck, I'm running 2 copies of Rose, Warrior of Revenge. She is the only Fire Warrior tuner in the game, so she's searchable under she's the only one who's searchable under the Pendulum effect because she's the only Fire Warrior tuner. And then I'm running 2 copies of Junk Changer because of his effect to manipulate the levels of junk monsters, which really only matters because he's the only one. But that just opens up a lot more possibilities with synchro plays. So that's all the monsters in the deck.
Fair enough. You said 28?
Yeah. And then on to spells, I run 2 copies of Ignition Phoenix, the Ignites field spell. Mm-hmm. And then I run 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhon.
Okay.
I personally run this over Twin Twisters just because I don't like discarding my pendulums. It's kind of hard to get them back out of the grave. And so that's just personal preference there. And then I'm running 2 copies of Igknight Reload to help if I open bad scales or too much of one scale, or if I need something besides just pendulum monsters in that hand, I'll just use that to help try and fix that hand and prevent bricking. And then I run 2 copies of Heart of the Underdog for draw because Ignites burn through those opening resources really quick, and that just helps sustain me for the later game.
Does this ever clog? I mean, like running 2 or like running them at all?
The only time I really have a problem with drawing into it is if my field's on the decline after getting solemned or something that kind of just like wipes out the resources I currently have, and I really need to draw into like a monster or something to get going again.
Fair enough.
But I've had this save me because like I had it on the field and then had that exact situation where I got solemned one time, and then I was able to draw into enough ignites that I was actually able to come back and actually OTK that person that very turn. So it just kind of helps save me when I'm down.
Cool.
So now to the one-ofs. I run 1 Regeki and 1 Rhoda because you can only run 1. I wish I could do more, but unfortunately.
Yeah.
So then I run 1 Terraforming to search out the Ignition Phoenix, and then I run 1 copy of Painful Choice because while it's useful to help get stuff in hand, and I kind of use it like another Rhoda, I just don't like losing my pendulums to the grave if I don't have to.
Fair enough. And that's the whole main deck?
Yeah, that's everything in the main deck. So now onto the extra deck. I run 6 Xyzs just to help me with certain bad spots that the Synchros can't really cover me for. So to start off, I run 1 Monarch to get rid of those big monsters, especially stuff like out of Blue Eyes or Cosmo, or not really Cosmo, but Blue Eyes, but really just Blue Eyes right now, I guess.
Blue Eyes and Monarch stuff occasionally.
Yeah.
Why not Castel?
I just like Monarch, and I currently don't have a Castel. I would probably be running the Castel over this at this point. I've had this save me a lot, but Castels can get rid of anything, so it's a little bit more useful in certain situations. It's really just whichever way you personally feel. And then I'm running 1 Heartland Draco.
Savage.
And that's because it can't be attacked if I have my scales up, and it helps finish off games by getting that direct attack to get that last little bit of life points from someone. Then I run 2 rank 5s. The first one is Artifact Durandal to stop monster effects, spell, trap cards, and then I run 1 Volcasaurus to help get rid of some of the bigger stuff.
Would you ever consider running a Gaia Charger with this, or does it not come up enough?
I have considered it. I will go into a 5 fairly decently, or fairly frequently, and I have considered it, especially because if either of these run out of units that are kind of just meh monsters on board. I don't personally have a Gaia Charger. I probably would make room for it if I had one, but I don't. So next is I run 1 Utopia Beyond to help get rid of some of that bigger stuff, especially is helpful against Monarchs. Just drop their ships to 0 attack and then just beat over everything.
Yeah, Cosmos and Monarchs.
Yeah. And then 1 Photon Strike Bouncer to stop those effects.
The extra bit of burn to help with the OTKs.
Yeah. And it's pretty solid on attack, so.
And then the rest are synchros, right?
Yes. So starting with level 7 synchros, I run 1 Odd Eyes Meteor Burst. I'll get into why I run that later. I run 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon. It just kind of puts some pressure on certain decks right now, and it's just a pretty solid card all around. And then I run 1 Black Rose.
Welcome.
Yeah, just to blow up the board when things get out of hand. And then I run 1 Stardust for destruction negation, and then 1 Ignister for the bounces.
Question about the Stardust. Would you ever consider Stardust Spark, the one that protects itself with another card?
I have considered it. I've looked into, I've compared the two, and the biggest thing is that this allows me to stop really any destruction, and I just don't find Stardust's effect, or Spark's effect to be as useful. In a lot of the situations where I've ended up making Stardust, I'd rather have it than the Spark.
Fair enough.
Next, we're getting into the 9s. I run 1 Azure Eyes to bring back the pendulums that do go to grave if I do end up getting striked, or if I'm forced to discard or detach off an Xyz, because it brings back that normal monster each standby phase. And it's just the fact that it can't be destroyed by card effects until the end phase of the next turn just makes it a really good defensive card if you need it that way.
Seems pretty good.
And then one of the reasons why I run the Junk Changer is for my Trish.
The one, the only.
Yep. And then for I'm running 2 level 10s. We have Leo. He's big, can't be targeted, just kind of hard to get around. Mm-hmm. Helpful for those big pushes or getting over that one big monster, especially with Blue Eyes right now. 100 over kills it.
Yeah.
And they can't beat over it, or can't counter beat over it with any of, unless they start going into the extra deck stuff. So.
Yeah.
I run 1 Nirvana High Paladin. It's actually kind of the all-star with this deck right now, and its pendulum effect is amazing if it ends up there. And then I'm running 1 Star Eater, which kind of like Leo, it helps get over the really big stuff right now, and it just really hurts Cosmos because they can't do much about it.
Yeah. Cool.
So now into some of the more specific combos for the deck.
Yeah. This seems like a weird kind of combination of cards.
It can be at times. So for the particular reason with why I'm running Eyes Meteor Burst, when it gets synchro summoned, it allows me to special summon a monster out of my scale, and I can clear my high scale. So when I go into the Nirvana from this, using Nirvana's effect to use a non-tuner pendulum monster, so using one of the 3s, like Crusader or Squire as my tuner to get into Nirvana, it allows me to clear that high scale slot. So if when this gets summoned, I get Trench Shield or something, this has a spot to go in my pendulum scales, and I don't have to worry about just losing it to the face-up extra deck. So it's the preferred combo would just be going Rose in with one of the 3s, and then having another 3 to make the Nirvana. one of my favorite combos is if this is scaled as my high scale for that pendulum summon, synchro these two, make the meteor burst, special summon this, and then this plus meteor burst to make the Nirvana and have that slot free. Another thing is if I use Junk Changer as my tuner, I can use his effect to change his level, which allows me a little bit more leniency with my hand. I can lower this to level 2, or leave it at level 3, and use one of the 4s of Paladin or Templar, and then use a 3 to get it into my Nirvana, or I can use its effect to make it level 4, and and then use a Crusader. Or if I use his effect to make him level 2, I can use one of the 5s, being Cavalier or Margrave, to get into that 7, and then only need the 3 for that final part. And that's kind of the real reason why I use him, is because he allows this play to be so much more available to me in different situations, and also he's a level 3, so it allows me to make the Trish, because I can do it plus 2 3s to Trish someone, or I can make Junk Changers level 2, use it and a 4 and a 3 to make my Trish, and so it just really opens up a lot of the synchro combos.
Wow. Well, it seems pretty cool. Thank you for sharing. This is Michael and Jossie of Team Sanctum signing off.